Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review.
Upon further review.
And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Sunday night football matchup between the Green Bay Packers and the New Orleans Saints. You can catch this game on October 26th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC Sunday Night Football. So the Packers are 5-2 going into this game, and the Saints are 2-4. The Packers started off by losing to Seattle in Seattle by 20 points, but then they bounced back in Week 2 by hosting the Jets, and they beat them by a touchdown. And that was a game where the Packers actually almost lost, but they ended up winning that one. They did lose in Week 3 as they lost to Detroit in Detroit, but then they went to Chicago and they beat the Bears. Then they hosted the Vikings in Lambeau Field, and they put a whooping on them. They beat them by 32 points. Then they went to Miami, and they beat the Dolphins by just 3 points with a late victory. Aaron Rodgers scoreless there at the end. It was very exciting. And then they hosted the Panthers in Week 7, and they just destroyed Carolina. It was a much more bigger victory for the Packers than the scoreboard even indicated. And let's look at the Saints. The Saints lost in Week 1 in Atlanta by just a field goal in overtime. And then they went to Cleveland and they lost by 2 points to the Browns. They finally picked up their first victory of the year in Week 3 as they hosted the Vikings. But then they went to Dallas and they lost to the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. They then hosted the Buccaneers and they beat the Bucs in New Orleans in overtime. That Kyrie Robinson touchdown there at the end. They then had their bye week, and then they went to Detroit last week, and they lost, a heartbreaker for New Orleans fans, as they were up, and they lost by just 1 point, as they allowed the Lions to come back on them in the end. So the Saints have had a disappointing season, but if you look at least 3 of their losses, excluding the Dallas game, you look at the loss to the Falcons in overtime by a field goal, then the loss to the Browns, just 2 points in a game that they were winning. And then the loss to Detroit by just 1 point in a game they also were winning. So those 3 losses right there were just by a combined 6 points. So, I mean, they easily could have, been 5-1 instead of 2-4. And we'd be talking about them in a completely different way. And so they're not really as bad as that 2-4 record indicates. And let's look at the offensive and defensive statistics for these two teams entering the game. And when it comes to passing proficiency, the Packers are 20th in passing yards gained per game. The Saints, on the other hand, they're number 2 when it comes to passing yards per game. And then we look at the passing defense. The Packers are number 5 in the NFL in passing yards allowed, and the Saints are 28th. So it's a tough call when it comes to the passing game. These two teams are pretty evenly matched up. You could really go either way. It's somewhat of a push. I mean, it's tough, like I said, because you got the number 2 passing offense of the Saints versus the number 5 passing defense of the Packers. The Packers are the 20th passing offense versus 28th passing defense, but that number for the Packers is very deceptive. They're a lot better than 20th. I mean, and that's why you kind of got to give the edge to the Packers in the passing game, but you could just as easily make the argument for the Saints as well. But then we look at the running attack of these two teams, and the Packers are 23rd in the NFL in rushing yards per game, and the Saints are 13th. And we look at the rushing defenses. The Packers are 31st in rushing yards allowed. The Saints are 11th. So when it comes to the running game, the clear advantage goes to New Orleans. Then we look at the points for and against, and the Packers are 4th in points scored per game. The Saints are 9th. When we look at points allowed, the Packers are 9th, and the Saints are 28th. So the advantage goes to the Packers. So on paper and statistically speaking, the advantage is in favor of Green Bay. You can make some arguments for the Saints, but overall the numbers do tend to favor the Packers for sure. And so if we were just looking at this one on paper, you'd go with Green Bay. And all signs indicate that the Packers should win this game. But here's the thing, I'm going with the Saints. I know I'm going out on a limb here. This week I'm going out on a limb a lot. This is like the week right here where either my instincts are going to be right or I'm going to take a huge hit, because I'm going out on a limb with quite a few games. Teams that statistically and looking at the numbers, and yes, they should win, but the games are not played on paper, they're played on the field. And the Saints at home, they are one of the best teams, at home. Like, they are abysmal on the road. They struggle to win on the road. Last year, the Saints were 2-6 away from New Orleans, and they were 8-0 at home. And so they're a really strong home team. I know that the Bucs almost beat them at home, and that kind of makes them look vulnerable, at home and everything. And their defense, especially through the air, has been horrible. And they also have been letting up lots of points. So, the Packers and Aaron Rodgers shouldn't have too much problem putting up numbers against the Saints or getting into the end zone. So it should be a shootout for sure. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and just airing it out. It should be exciting to watch. But I think that the Saints are going to be able to pull this one off. I think that they rise to the occasion. They've been having some issues, with health and everything. And Jimmy Graham has been banged up, but it looks like he's going to be playing in this game. He is questionable, but it looks like we're going to have Jimmy Graham playing. Of course, they do have, Kyrie Robinson is injured. He's not going to be playing. Charles Thomas is injured. Knox and Goodwin are both going to be out for the Saints. Dante Jones is not playing this game for the Packers. Sam Shields is banged up. James Starks is kind of banged up too, and so is Morgan Burnett. All those are Packers. But I just think that the Saints rise to the occasion. It's prime time, Sunday night football. It's in New Orleans. I think Drew Brees is going to come out and have a huge game and lift the Saints to the improbable victory. I think it's going to come down to the end. It's going to be a close game, but I think that New Orleans pulls it off. It's one of those games where, like I said, on paper, you would think everything favors the Panthers. It does on paper, but in New Orleans, it's a whole nother story, as the Saints are a much better team at home than they are on the road. And this game right here is like a must-win for the Saints. Like, they have to win this game. They cannot afford to lose this one. They lose this game, their season is all but over for New Orleans. They're already in a rough position as it is, sitting there at 2-4, and it doesn't look like they're necessarily going too far. But maybe if they win this game, maybe they start to turn things around. I'm not saying necessarily what's going to happen moving forward, but I think in this game, the Saints are going to show up and they're going to play, 100% and give it their all, 60 minutes, and win this one. In the end, somehow they're going to find a way. Drew Brees is going to do it, whether it's connecting with Jimmy Graham or something else. If Colston or some of his other targets there, the Saints somehow pull out the victory. Of course, they said the Packers, by all accounts, should win this game, and I wouldn't be shocked to see the Packers win, because this is a game they should win. But I just think that my instincts tell me, and just looking back, at history, I really do believe Drew Brees will rise to the occasion and win this game. I still think, Aaron Rodgers is going to put up the numbers and everything, and he should have a good game, but I just don't think that the Packers defense is going to be able to stop the Saints. And I think, Mark Ingram is going to have a big game. So that's what I think. I think the Saints pull off the victory against all odds. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Very interested to read your thoughts and opinions. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit the like button. How else would we know you enjoyed the show if you don't hit the like button? And if you want more of this content, make sure to subscribe as we bring you upon further reviews and recaps of each and every single game throughout the regular season and the playoffs all the way through the Super Bowl. We're also covering the MLB playoffs. It's now down to just 2 teams in the World Series. We've been covering it all the way through from the wild card to now, and we will continue to cover it until there is a baseball champion, so keep an eye out for that. We also do our weekly show, The Wedge, where we do our quick picks, our fantasy football picks, our weekly rewind of the week that was, where we go over our quick picks and fantasy fortune picks, and also the top stat lines and top fantasy performers of the week. And we also do our Upon Further review on the show for the Thursday night game, and we try to have that up no later than Thursday. We got up kind of late this week, but we try to start getting that up like Tuesday, Wednesday. So thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and have a great weekend and enjoy all of the sports.